Do they
Oh,
see me?
they should be able to see you. Yeah. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Special edition live interview with Larry Kotlikoff from Maxifi. And as always, if you can give me a thumbs up in the stream to let me know, you can hear us and see us. As you can see, we're doing some different things with the screen because at some points in the show, Steve, I see the thumbs up. Thank you. Larry's going to walk through his software. But for now, I'm going to take that off. And there's Larry, and there's me. Good. Larry, how are you?
Good. Great to be back with you, Rob.
Well, I'm thrilled that you could be here. I'm really looking forward to this. I got all kinds of questions. I've gotten a whole spreadsheet full of questions that viewers, subscribers to my newsletter have asked me to ask you. Sure. So what I want to do, I know we've got about 50 minutes. I want to ask you, as I alluded to before we went live, I want to ask you two economics questions, since you are a professor of economics.
Sure.
And at my alma mater, right, I was at BU Law from 89 to 92. Were you teaching then?
Yeah, we overlapped, and we'd like to have we could use a contribution, Rob.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll take that one offline. Okay. So two quick questions about economics. The first one is, there was a lot of talk with tariffs that they would cause inflation.
Yeah.
Inflation is hovering around 3%, at least according to the government. Not as bad, frankly, not as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So why is that? Is inflation coming? Is it just delayed? Why aren't we seeing the inflation that a lot of folks thought we would see?
Well, a lot of people who are selling have kind of local monopolies, and they don't want to raise prices and lose customers. So there's some absorption of the cost. So you don't put it onto the consumer, you put it onto the U.S. company, the retail distributor. But they can only take that hit for so long. They're also maybe trying to switch to different suppliers from Vietnam, other places to get around the tariffs. There's also the foreign exporter who might be willing to take a hit, and that's the President Trump's argument that we have some monopoly power here that we can, or monopsony, we're a single buyer. But China has lots of markets, so ultimately this will play out in terms of the cost of living being higher, but that can play out in the form of higher inflation or just lower wages. That our wage growth can, let's say that prices continue to rise at 3%, but wages over time rise less rapidly. Then you can see, in effect, the cost of goods is going up relative to your wages, but you don't quite see it in the form of inflation. You see it in the form of slower wage growth. And then there's lots of reasons for that. So then people don't necessarily. But the other thing is we were never that heavily dependent on, we're not that on exports and imports as a share of the economy. It's not that big a deal compared to maybe China. And then you've got these tariffs there's tariff, like with Mexico, a lot of things are exempt at the moment that were covered under the free trade agreement, the revised free trade agreement. So it's, I think that the
Let
issue,
me ask you this. Do you think inflation is coming? You think it's going to go up?
Yeah, let me just say the bigger issue is, are we going to kind of antagonize our trading partners and our allies and other, everybody to the point where they start saying, well, we could actually just deal directly with China. We don't need, they're great. They're not giving us this kind of problem. And we see a realignment. I just wonder whether we're isolating ourselves with this approach. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, do you think at the end of the day, we're going to see higher inflation in the next year or two?
It's certainly quite possible. I mean, the other thing is that this government is really, over long term, insolvent. We have to do something to fix Social Security, healthcare spending. The whole path of outlays is roughly about 7% of GDP, too high relative to the path of receipts. So we have an actually bigger fiscal problem, basically twice as bad as Italy. Our official debt is smaller as a share of GDP, but our off-the-books liabilities, Social Security, for example, is terribly underfunded. is much bigger as a share of GDP. So Italy's, there's a Kotlikoff.net, which is my website. I compared just recently in a study with the Bank of Italy, the U.S. and Italian fiscal solvency. We look terrible compared to Italy.
Okay. Well, all right. And we'll get back to Social Security from a different angle here in a minute. The other quick question: do you think AI is going to significantly boost productivity, say in the next 5 years?
I think in some ways, but is it as important as the steam engine? Is it as important as the railroad or the Erie Canal? I mean, or the car? The combustion engine or solar panels. Yes, I can get for myself answers much quicker. I'm much more productive because I can go and ask a question and get pretty much the right answer. But certain questions, AI is just going to get dead wrong. For example, if we're going to talk about my company's Maxifi planner software, and I run even a simple case in Maxifi without any cash flow constraints, and I compare it with the best AI program, they can be off by a factor of 2. They can say spend twice as much as our software says is sustainable. And our software when it says it's sustainable, it means that if you spend even $1 too much now, you're going to have to spend less in the future. And so if you spend twice as much as we're recommending, you're going to be bankrupt in retirement.
Yeah.
So the mathematics underlying the neural networks are good for certain issues, but not good for others. So it's not. I'm kind of a skeptic. I don't see that. And I also see that the other thing to say is that there's so many companies out here can do the same thing that the profits in this sector aren't going to be that enormous. So how can we have a third of the S&P valued based on, a third of the value of the S&P? It comprises 10 AI companies, all of whom are losing money. If you look at NVIDIA, they've got $5 trillion valuation and $18 billion in income. 350 billion in sales. It's just way. It feels like 2000 all over again. The dot-com bubble.
Okay.
So I'd be careful.
All right, so let's get to Maxify. I know why folks are here, and I appreciate the audience, tolerating my two questions. But have been wanting to ask you those questions.
I love these questions.
So I know with Maxify, and I've read a lot of your work. It's sort of it's unlike other retirement planners. It's I'll say an economics-based approach.
Right.
So I guess my first question is, as a practical matter for users of the software, what does that mean? How is Maxify different than any other retirement planner or all the others perhaps that are out there?
Yeah, I think we're really unique because we have, it's uniquely difficult to do it. And we spent 32 years getting a patent and getting the technology together and getting all the details of the fiscal side, the 51 state income tax, well, not up to 42 state income taxes, including DC. Economists have been at this for a century, and we stick really to exactly what the economics giants of finance have come up with. And the first big giant there was Irving Fisher from Yale in the 1920s, who talked about consumption smoothing. And a squirrel can get this right. Gets this right. They just save acorns in the when it's not winter, when they're out there piling up acorns in order to be able to consume 12 a day. And they actually accumulate something like 10,000. They bury them in different places to diversify so that, because people can, other animals may dig up their pile, their stashes. So they're very busy saving, but their idea is to try and have a smooth living standard, smooth acorn consumption. And that's because of satiation. So Fisher said, and even going back to a guy named Bernoulli back in the 1500s, the idea of diminishing marginal utility, that if I prefer to consume 365 steaks, one a day for the course of the year rather than all in one day, because it's going to make me sick, right? And after
So in a practical matter, we save for retirement in our working year. We could have spent that money, but we save for retirement. Those are the acorns we set aside.
yeah,
And then when we retire, we spend it.
that's our winner. Exactly.
Right.
And so the first thing that I think financial education or guidance should do is to show a safety first solution. If you invest as safely as possible, which would be in inflation index bonds, TIPS, Treasury inflation protected securities, and you make conservative assumptions about how long you can work, what you can earn, and your retirement, let's say your healthcare costs out of pocket in retirement, based on that, and the fixed, so that they were fixed off the top expenses that might be including nursing home care or but then there's also taxes, which we're internally calculating. But then the issue in housing expenses, that's off the top, unless you're going to tell you the program that you want to sell your house, downsize, for example. But given your fixed spending, some of which is endogenous to what you're going to spend, there is a unique safe discretionary spending amount that you can, that living standard that you can maintain right up till your maximum age of life, which we default to be 100. And so that's the first thing that economics wants you to do, which is deliver a consumption smoothing path that maintains households' discretionary spending, their living standard per household member, taking into account that.
Let me do something real quick, Larry.
Okay,
I'm
sure.
gonna at some point you may share your screen, but for the moment I'm going to share mine.
Okay.
Just so people can see what we're talking about, if that's okay.
Sure.
So this is actually my wife and I's Maxify account, except that I've changed all the numbers. Just in case, as I like to say, Larry, just in case my mother-in-law is watching, I don't want her to know what we've got. So I've changed all the numbers. And if we go, by the way, I like this video. I watch that. It's a good video. But I ran a base plan, and just so people, we're all on the same page. You have this concept of fixed spending and discretionary. So fixed spending, correct me if I'm wrong, that would be taxes. If you're still working, retirement contributions, eventually it would be your Medicare Part B premiums, I believe. And then I'll just say generally housing related costs.
Right. And they're all, by the way, they're all outlined. If you click on the right, the spending on the menu on the far right, they're all detailed. If you just scroll down, you can see all the details. Yeah.
Housing, Part B, retirement contributions, taxes. Now, and then discretionary spending is sort of everything else. That's everything from utilities to food to vacations to a convertible, whatever. So my first question, so this discretionary spending, if I hover over it, it's more or less smooth.
That's the green columns. Yes.
Yeah.
It would be perfectly smooth if you weren't cash flow constrained. And the fact that, at the very end, one of the spouses is older than the other and dies before, because we're assuming they both live to 100. And so we're adjusting. So if it's two people and one dies, the suggested discretionary spending doesn't drop in half because there's economies of shared living. You still need to pay for the heating and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So but the reason that before that it wouldn't be perfectly smooth is that you're cash flow constrained. And I think what's going on with you at the very end here is you probably have some Roth money coming in that you start taking at the very end, and the software lets you to take your money, your Roth funds out first or last, or proportionally with your non-Roth withdrawals. But as soon as you start, if you save the Roth money till the end to take it out, well, guess what? You start taking out money there, and then you have no tax liabilities anymore, and and you can't borrow against that. So we have about 2/3 of American households who are cash flow constrained. So giving them the smoothest possible living standard path, a discretionary spending path, is what our software is doing. But but a lot of households are not constrained, and they can have an absolutely smooth discretionary spending until one of them, passes, and then it drops down.
What do you mean by cash flow constraint? What does that mean?
Well, that means, like, suppose you've got a mortgage you're trying to pay off, and you've got kids at home, so a lot of mouths to feed, and you can't borrow against the future earnings that aren't here yet, and then you might have a lot of Social Security money coming in and you're retired at age 62 and you can't borrow. Maybe you're 62 and you're single and you've got this big Social Security benefit, you can't borrow against it. So you have to spend down here for a while until you get, but you can have multiple periods of cash flow constraints
Okay.
where you can, and your picture showed that actually. You had several in the program in a half a second. We'll figure this out because we have underlying, super sophisticated technology that solves these equations that the giants of finance came up with, and nobody ever figured out how to solve them quickly on a computer. And that's what the achievement of Maxify is. And we won a patent for a technique called iterative dynamic programming that it's dynamic programming is something that NASA would use to guide a spaceship to the moon, and we economists use it in lots of different contexts. And this is multiple programs doing dynamic programming and passing data back and forth to each other to get the right answer, to get internally consistent.
So my question then is, this discretionary spending number, is it in your software, at least from my perspective, is a very important number. And as a user, I would look at that number and then decide if that's, like if you imagine someone deciding whether they could retire or not, they'd look at that number and say, okay, well, can I live on that or not? Is that enough? And so how does the software use some sort of Monte Carlo analysis to come up with that number? How do you get that?
So the first thing, it has Monte Carlo simulations for people that are investing at risk. But the first obligation, I think, of a financial planning tool is to show people a safest possible, safety first plan. So this is assuming that you're investing just in inflation index bonds, and that you're getting the default assumption. You can change the default assumption, but we're assuming like basically about 2.2% real on an ongoing basis. And so that's there's a single answer to that, Rob. It's not like you need to simulate different outcomes. And it's not aspirational. It's not, hey, how much would you like to spend? We will simulate, if you invest this way, the probability of you're making that. A squirrel wouldn't go for that. Really, they really want to have the 12 acorns a day in retirement. So they're very risk averse. So we're saying, look, if you're happy with this level of living standard, this discretionary spending path, then maybe you don't want to, based on investing in tips, then why do you have 80% in the stock market? If the market goes up, you're not going to spend anymore. You're kind of saying you're spending even less than the program recommends. If the market drops, you'd have to take a hit. So this helps people think through. But then we do have people that do want to have some play in the market, and we have two ways of looking at that. One is
let me just slow you down a bit so we can catch people up, because I'm following everything you're saying.
Okay.
But I want to show them on the software. But I just want to make sure I understand how discretionary spending is calculated. So if I go back to my screen like this is the assumption page. I've left the default assumptions alone. So the nominal, you call it safe rate of return, 5%, inflation's 2.25. That gives you an after inflation rate of 2.69. So that's true for all the accounts. So in this plan, when it shows you've got discretionary spending of whatever, 80,000 or whatever the number is that effectively a deterministic approach, just assuming we'll get this safe rate of return every year, and then this is the number?
It's deterministic, but it's not easy to calculate because.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll leave the complexity to you and the programmers, and I know we can do down here, we could do full risk investing analysis, which I've run myself with upside investing, or you could do both, right?
Yes.
And so someone could do a Monte Carlo analysis,
right?
And it would give you percentages, based on the analysis. But that's helpful. So when we go back to the base report, this base plan, this is using. I could change those assumptions, but I've just left them alone for now. Those sort of safe return assumptions. And I could change it to whatever I wanted, right, as a user.
Right.
If I wanted to say, no, I'm going to put in 8% and returns and 3% inflation or whatever. All right. Once you have this, you can do a Maxify. You can maximize the plan, and you can look at Social Security claiming strategies, Roth conversion strategies, or the withdrawal order. And you could do all three of them, and you could do the analysis and add, if you wanted to, the results to your base plan, right?
Yep. Or under a different name, if you like,
Or do a new plan.
Yeah.
One of the questions,
Mm-hmm.
one of the questions I get a lot is, and I ran a maximized plan, but one of the questions I get a lot is, for the Roth conversion, a lot of people have emailed me and said, Rob, it's having me convert everything in a relatively short period of time, 1, 2, 3 years. That's putting me into the 37% tax bracket. From what I can tell, I would never be in that bracket, except that there's this massive Roth conversion. Have you seen that in the software, and can you help us understand why the software is reaching that conclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I wrote a column. Once we came out with our algorithm, and it was showing the go big or go home.
Yeah, right.
So the problem is very nonlinear. There's about 7 different tax reduction aspects to doing Roth conversions, which I won't list off because I want to save us time. But it's really very similar to to why you would take, if you had a staph infection or pneumonia, why you would take large doses of antibiotics over a short period of time rather than a small amount for, let's say, 5 months and then end up dead. So medicine is very nonlinear.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Lots of things in life are nonlinear. So if you take your pain to get your gain, so if you, for example, can do a lot of conversions right away in the next, let's say, 3 years or 5 years, whatever, let's say the program might come out with, and it's looking at all the different possible conversion paths, and there's really an infinity of amounts that you can convert over of the total that's convertible, and also the sequencing. There's really an infinite number of answers. And our software and economists are used to handling problems like this that seem impossible. They're unanswerable problems that we can answer because we have techniques for solving highly nonlinear problems that, and we can hone in on them, on the solution quite quickly. And so if you take large conversions early, then let's say before you take Social Security, now you're going to reduce the taxation of your Social Security benefits. You're going to reduce from that after the conversions period, you're going to have lower federal income taxes for the rest of your life. In many states, there's a taxation of Social Security benefits under the state income tax. There's also state income taxes themselves. So we're reducing 4 things. You're also reducing your IRMA taxes, which are extremely nonlinear. I could earn an extra dollar at 63, and end up seeing my Part B Medicare IRMA premium. It's called a premium, but it's not. It's really a tax. Go up by $1,200.
And this chart's comparing. I did this in this demo data for the Roth conversion analysis. It's showing me that how the maximized plan would reduce Part B premiums, right?
Yeah,
over time. I don't think it includes Part D, because those are subject to IRMA as well.
That's coming, and so we're definitely have that on our to-do list. The other thing is that you think about, I'm paying a lot of taxes now, but there's one other kind of subtle gain, which is that means you're going to have lower regular asset income into the future, and that too will also mean lower taxes. So
right.
That's part of the seven things that you gain by taking your medicine in large doses early.
Now I'm trying to think, can your software, some people have a very
let me just say one thing. Sorry, Rob, to interrupt.
Yeah.
But before we got together, I actually did a test case to tell people about, and it's one in which a guy has about $1.25 million in, he's in his 60, $1.25 million in regular assets, $1.25 million in an IRA, and the conversion program says to convert, he's 62, take basically convert almost all of it within 3 years. And then I said, okay, and the gain was about $190,000. And then I said, well, let's incorporate that into the program under a separate profile. Let's copy that, and then let's modify it and compare it with what we said was optimal. So let's double check inside our software. You can do this to see whether we're crazy. And so I said, well, let's take the same amount of conversions, but do it smoothly over 10 years. Okay, I did that, did the comparison. I could show it to you right now on the screen if you like, but it reduces, it reduces the let me just see if I can.
I think I can make this happen maybe. Let's see. Whoops, it went away.
It did? Oh, let me select this guy, share. Okay, so this was the gain. Okay, it was around 136,000 from doing the conversion, and then and the timing is right here. It's convert 1.2 million out of the 1.25 million over this period of time. So it's these amounts in today's dollars over these 3 years. And the alternative would be, let's take that and consider smooth Roth conversions over 10 years. And I compared it with that case that I just showed you, the optimum, and it reduces the lifetime discretionary spending and present value by $43,000. So even though if you look at the base, the Roth maximized, let me just show you the very irregular marginal taxes. We've kicked up this guy's marginal taxes by doing a lot of conversions in 3 years. He would otherwise be in about a 22% tax bracket. He's going to be in a 35% bracket for 3 years. But then for the rest of his days, he's going to have lower taxes compared to, and you can do compare his annual taxes, for example. Let me just compare taxes. Where's taxes? Right here. So the maximized, much higher taxes early on, and then later on, lower taxes in future years.
Well, this
lower IRA and so forth. Say again?
But it does raise a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when we think about longevity, when it comes to how much money we can spend, I think you and I both agree we tend to want to be conservative because we don't want to run out of money. I don't want to assume I'm going to die at 83. Mm-hmm. So you put in 95 or 100 or whatever, some number that's generally much greater than your life expectancy, just to be safe, right?
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that same kind of thinking makes sense with Roth conversions, because it's a different kind of animal. And the longer I live, presumably the greater the benefit will be. It's just in theory, depending on the circumstances. Each year I live, I get another Social Security check that maybe isn't taxed or isn't taxed as much, and I get Medicare benefits that aren't subject to IRMA, or at least not the same tier, right? Another year where I don't have as much money in my taxable account generating dividends and interest.
Right.
And so is there any logic, or what do you think about this idea of, for Roth conversion analysis, maybe we shouldn't assume we're going to live to be 95 or 100. Maybe we should assume something more like a typical life expectancy.
Well, you can certainly change the maximum age of life and look at it that way. Economics says to look at the worst case scenario with respect to any risk, and longevity risk, living to your maximum age of life is the worst case. Now, there are obviously, you could die, and part of this depends on your degree of risk aversion, and also your kids' situation. If the money's going to go to your kids, and if they're much lower tax brackets, then, and you're concerned that you might die within a couple of years, you would have paid a lot of taxes, and and the kids are otherwise the kids would have inherited regular IRAs and over the combined family would have paid less taxes had you not done the conversions. Let's put it that way. So you want to see that, but you want to kind of see the gains from doing it this way versus that way, or at least be able to think about it in concrete terms. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
Here's what, maybe I don't have any kids. Maybe my kids are in higher tax brackets. Maybe I'm estranged from my kids. Whatever it is, you want to be able to get the right answer to any given question, exactly the correct answer, and then be able to kind of think through it. But
is it your experience that, and then I want to turn to Social Security in the time that we have, but is it your experience that Maxifi often concludes that someone should convert most of their tax deferred accounts in just a handful of years, or
yes.
is it? Oh, yes. So that's pretty.
It's mostly, but I have seen cases where it says do a conversion over 15 years, and you can start converting if you're 40. You can start really, right away. You don't have to wait till you're retired. So, and the program will look it may take a little longer to crank, but it'll look from age 40 to age 100, and it will also let you to limit your conversion analysis to cases where your living standard won't be reduced, where you don't run into a cash flow constraint. It will also let you, you can also run profiles where you use additional withdrawals from your IRA to help you pay for the taxes on the conversions. And I have, under the Learning Center at Maxifi.com, if you click at the very bottom, there's a Learning Center. You'll come to my kind of columns, and I wrote up one about using an extra IRA withdrawals to help you handle the cash flow problems of Roth conversions. And it shows, the gain was something like $300,000 or something, $340,000. It turned out to be about $8,000 less if they did some additional IRA withdrawals, not conversions, but IRA withdrawals. They have to pay taxes on those withdrawals, but then the extra money left over after they pay taxes on those withdrawals can be used to pay the taxes on the conversions.
Yeah. And
you still end up with something that, maintains your living standard and raises your lifetime spending. Well, doesn't maintain it, raises it relative to the base plan of doing nothing, and alleviates any cash flow problem. So
in other words, the drag by using your IRA to pay the taxes is there, but it doesn't sound like it was that significant.
Right. It was not. It was remarkably small. I thought it was going to just undo the entire gain, but the thing about this is there's so many moving parts that are being calculated, and you say, well, how do you trust this thing? Well, you can see from the lifetime budget that if I take any profile, that the lifetime budget is being balanced to the dollar, that the living standard, if it's not perfect, if the discretionary spending, if it's not perfectly smooth, then it will change because of a reason. Because I can see in the asset report that the person didn't have the funds to have a higher spending, that right before they jump up to a higher living standard, they run out of assets. So we don't want to bring into assets into a period where we don't need them. We need to use those assets in this period. So economics says that they should zero out. They should spend their assets down to zero over this interval, and then now they get to enjoy that, let's say, inheritance that comes in.
Yeah, I think the issue that I see
is what I'm saying.
Well, the issue that I see is that no matter whether you use Maxifi or some other software, there's a lot of assumptions that go in. And as a user, I do my best to make reasonable assumptions, but we know they're going to be wrong. We don't know when and exactly how much. But the problem, and I think probably what keeps me from doing major conversions now, is that a lot of these assumptions could be wrong, whether it's future tax rates, how long both my wife and or I live, exactly what our income is going to be. That's an unknown for us. And you can't undo a Roth conversion. You know, if I'm off a bit with discretionary spending, we can probably cut back. We can adjust. You can't adjust from a Roth conversion. Once it's done, it's done. And I don't, you know, it's really more of an observation. Software, I don't think, can answer that problem. I mean, you know, software needs the assumptions, and we do the best we can. But boy, it takes a lot of nerve, I think, to make these massive Roth conversions, knowing you can't undo it. And
the other, I think, what I would say, Rob, would be run the program, go to settings and assumptions, and specify a 20% federal income tax hike and a higher growth rate of IRMA, and you will see that the gain from conversions is dramatically larger. And then, so now you're taking a risk that on fiscal policy here, that fiscal policy will say, we have a country that's insolvent, fiscally speaking. So the chances that we're going to have major tax hikes, it has to happen. And so I think that, you know, you have to kind of weigh these things, and you're absolutely right that you can't say for sure that this is the thing to do, but you know, I would say we have a lot of people doing it. They're saying, I don't want to take the risk of getting hit with slam with much higher taxes on withdrawals. I don't see Congress changing the treatment of Roths because so many members of Congress themselves have done conversions. I think the way to think about fiscal policy is, how does it affect individual members of the Senate and the House? Because they're the ones who are going to be thinking primarily about themselves when it comes to voting.
That's why I was so disappointed that when the Affordable Care Act passed, the members of Congress weren't required to use it. That's a different topic. Let's talk about Social Security. So I know for a lot of married couples.
You want to turn off the screen here?
Yeah. With married couples with one person making, let's say, significantly more.
Okay.
That the software often says, well, the higher earner should wait till they're 70. And the lower earner should take earlier than that, but exactly when, you know, it can vary. Kind of walk us through the logic behind that.
Okay.
And why that is sort of often considered the right approach.
So our software, first of all, is comprehensive. It's looking at every single month that you and your spouse, and if you have disabled children, that comes into play. When you should take each benefit that's available to you and to the kids and the spouse, and then there's also, if your maximum age of life, maybe you're absolutely sure you're not going to make it beyond 85, and then you've got a much younger spouse, and they're going to collect survivor benefits, widow's benefit, or widower benefits on your record. That comes into play in the whole. And how do we maximize your lifetime spending in the process of it's not just maximizing your lifetime benefits, because this strategy might produce more taxes. So we're also incorporating the tax implications of taking Social Security at this time versus that time. So I just want to be clear that the optimization goes beyond just optimizing Social Security benefits. So the reason that you might want to have let's say you had a lower earning spouse who's 65 and a higher earning spouse who's 65 and the much higher earner, and the lower earner can collect on the higher earner spouse's earnings record in the form of a spousal benefit. So let's say the higher earner is going to wait till 70 to collect. But the lower earner could start right away at 65, or even wait till 67 at full retirement age and start collecting. Between 65 and 70, that spouse will collect their own retirement benefit. And once they're hit age 70, they'll collect in addition, they'll collect what's called an excess spousal benefit, which will be half of the higher earning spouse's full retirement benefit. So by collecting on their own, they don't collect the benefit that the total check they're going to get starting at age 70. That's going to be the same. The composition of it's going to be more of the retirement benefit, or because they took it early, less the retirement benefit, more of the excess spouse benefit. But the total payment they're going to get, the total check from 70 on, will be the same, and it's going to be due to the fact that their higher earning spouse is going to wait till 70 to collect. But between 65 and 70, they can collect money for free. It's a freebie. And the program is going to look at all those options and say, this is going to produce higher lifetime spending. Let's go this way, and recommend they start collecting on their own, because it's not going to cost them anything. It's just free money. So this is one of the freebies left in the system. In addition, the biggest freebie is just waiting to collect this much higher benefit starting at 70. For most households, like 90% should be collecting starting at 70. Only 10% are. And you need to see what you're giving up. And it could be several, I've seen cases where we're talking about a couple, they're 62, they're both high earners, they're taking benefits right away, and they could be giving up $600,000 in present value when you discount. But now to them, a lot of these people say, well, I can earn 10% on the market. Well, the market doesn't say that. The market says, yes, you can, but on a risky basis, on a risk-adjusted basis, you can earn the tips return. And so if you're sure that you can beat the market, then you should be a billionaire, a gazillionaire. Yeah. You should be richer than
I want to go back to something, because you said that it's a freebie by starting to collect at 65, and I'm not sure everyone necessarily zeroed in on that, and I just want to make sure I understand it. So when that lower earning spouse, when that person can get the spousal benefit, in our hypothetical, it's at age 70, because that's when the other spouse started claiming Social Security, they're going to get, and let's forget about how it's calculated for a moment, they're going to get half of the higher earner spouse's benefit, more or less.
Well, full retirement benefit, not the age 70 benefit.
Right. Yeah. Right. The full retirement benefit of the higher earner spouse. And that's true kind of regardless of when is that true regardless of when the lower earning spouse decides to start claiming Social Security?
It's not exactly, it's close to true, but it's not exactly true, because what the lower earner will get will be their reduced retirement benefit plus the excess spousal benefit. So it won't add up exact. If they took their own retirement benefit a little bit before full retirement benefit age, it'll be a little bit lower than half of the higher earners' full retirement benefit.
But is that the idea why taking it 65 is sort of free? Because once you get to 70, you're going to get half of the.
You're going to get pretty much the same thing anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. I've had a lot of questions from folks that say, and it comes up with both Social Security and Roth conversions. They want to talk about a break-even point. How old do I have to live for a delay in Social Security, along with the higher benefits I'll get, to pay off?
Yeah.
I also hear this in Roth conversion. Someone said, in fact, one of the questions was, can Larry add a feature to Maxifi that shows a user exactly when they are no longer underwater from a big Roth conversion? I mean, and I've never been convinced that that's the right way to look at, particularly a Roth conversion, but even Social Security.
If we had a software tool that was talking about homeowners insurance, I could say, well, here's the size of the fire you'd have to have the fire would have to destroy 3/4 of your house in order for you to break. Beyond that, less than that, don't buy homeowners insurance. It's exactly the same thing. With homeowners insurance, we don't even raise these questions. We just think about the worst case scenario, which is our house burns down. We haven't bought any insurance. We're living on the street. Okay. Here, the worst case scenario was we live to 100, and we can't count on dying on time. And in economics is very clear. It says, look, economics doesn't ignore the probability that you're going to live to 100 is very low, but also the value of those benefits of having income when you're 100 is extremely high. So you got one thing kind of going to zero, the probability of you're making it, and the other thing is the marginal utility of having income in that state going up to infinity. So you got zero against infinity, and the infinity thing goes up faster. But economics says if you're not super risk averse, what you would do is take a gamble and spend more when you're young and less when you're old, because the probability of you're making it. So don't kind of don't lower your lifetime Social Security benefits by thinking about things the wrong way, by basing it on life expectancy. Think about your planning horizon correctly as being your maximum age of life. But given that, optimize your lifetime Social Security benefits, but then spend those and other resources at a higher clip early so that your living standard declines through time. And under settings and assumptions, you have something called in our software, the living standard index. So you can tell the program, hey, I'd like to have my living standard gradually decline starting at 75, maybe 2% a year. And then the program will say, well, to the extent you're not cash flow constrained, we'll have you spend, we'll tell you to spend more earlier on and raise your discretionary spending. So you'll see your discretionary spending might be like flat up here and then gradually start declining in that chart that you showed us. If you put that into the assumptions. So we can't count on living on time. We can't count on our house not burning down. We can't count on not having totaling the car. It's the same problem. You have to think about it.
That's all for Social Security, and it makes sense to me. If it's longevity insurance, effectively. Do you think does it make sense to think of a Roth conversion in terms of a break-even age, or it doesn't seem to me like that makes sense? It's a different analysis.
No, it's really there's no real break-even, because you could still make it to 100, and that really has to be your planning horizon.
Well, but you can also break even the next day or the next year. It depends on tax rates and all the tax effects of your choice between effectively paying the tax this year or some future year.
I mean, I would say like this. If one way one could think about this is let me run myself through Maxify, and then for my kids who are really, if I die and I'm single, and I haven't saved all the taxes, I'm going to be in heaven getting all the money I want, right? So I don't have to worry, right? But if I have kids, if the consideration is I pay these taxes and my kids aren't going to do as well because I screwed up, well then set up your kids in Maxify, get an account, it's $149, buy a plan for them, and then consider different scenarios in which you die at these different dates and how much would they inherit in what form, and then put that into their plan and see how they do, and then do this joint kind of comparison analysis. And we can certainly help people. We have concierge service to help them. We can help do that with them.
I know we're almost out of time. Let me just give you a couple of quick rapid fire questions that viewers sent to me. One, does your privacy policy allow you to share or sell personally identifiable information about your users? I assume the answer is no, but
absolutely not. We have never conveyed a single thing about anybody to anybody, including ourselves. Okay. I would love, I'm an economist. I would love to look at people's data and see what they're doing compared to.
I figured as much. Any plans to show both real and nominal numbers? I think all your numbers are after inflation, right? Yeah,
everything's real. We think showing nominal numbers is misleading, because it'll show people seeming to have millions at the end of their days, when in fact it could be peanuts given the inflation, or relatively small. So we think that you just need to be looking at, to really comprehend it, you have to look at it in terms of current today's dollars. In terms of hot dogs, think about a hot dog costing $1 at Costco. How many hot dogs can I spend every year the rest of my life?
Well, Costco's hot dog price never goes up, I don't think. I think
I just went there, and it's about like $1.50.
Although I must confess, I've never had a Costco hot dog.
It's pretty good.
I can't think of the last time.
I'm going to take you for a hot dog. You got a free hot dog on me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one person asked about consumption smoothing, and their point was that studies show that people actually don't do that. They spend less as they get older. But I think you've already answered that, because your software can account for that if the user wants to show a lower living standard over time.
Yeah, it can let your living standard decline,
Yeah.
but also people when they're younger are they have kids, so so the program is going to say spend more, but they may also be cash flow constrained. So even if you want to
Well, I
spend
think
more,
I
you may
think
not be
the
able to.
user here is talking about once you're in retirement.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, first decade's the go-go years, then the slow-go years, then the no-go year. And in for what it's worth, for my family members and friends that I know that are in their 70s or 80s or even 90s, it's absolutely true. They spend less and less and less. They just can't do as much.
yeah.
Um, anyway,
And,
okay. Well, what else do you want to tell us? But I know you wanted. I think you had to stop at about now.
well,
So
I'm actually good for a little bit more. So
okay.
it turns out freed up. Yeah.
All right. Then here's another question. There's a couple more rapid fire. Jim, my wife's RMDs began in 2028, mine in 2032. Does it matter which IRA we do Roth conversions from first?
Well, so our software assumes that people want to, if they live to a certain maximum age of life, that they will use up their withdrawal from their accounts, uh, uh, unless they tell the program that they don't want to spend it all, then it will be left to the spouse. But uh, basically, the idea here with the conversions is you want to give as much runtime in terms of saving on taxes, on IRMA, on state income taxes, Social Security benefit taxation, as much runtime as possible. So our software may say, let's go with the conversions for the spouse that's going to have a longer runtime to make sure that we get the maximum savings. Uh, you can opt to kind of restrict that, and we're providing more. We're always upgrading the software. So within a couple of weeks, we're going to have the ability to limit how much you want to spend out of your Roth, for example. You may want to, as opposed to spending out of your IRA, you may want to limit the share of your Roth that you actually spend on your withdrawal, and leave more of that for your kids. And the program is now doing really good estate planning, limiting your discretionary spending to at a level that you want, where you can set that under settings and assumptions. So for people that where the program says, hey, you can spend more than the program, then you can spend consistently and safely more than the program than you're actually spending. Well, you can now set a limit on your spending and see that your estate will go up. Your terminal estate will go up. You'll look at the estate report, and you'll see the components: the Roth component, the regular IRA component, the regular asset component, the housing equity component, the real estate component. So you can do really good estate planning. You can think about, do I want to leave a bigger estate or make gifts or just spend more myself? Those are the three trade-offs, and you can play with it and decide what is the optimal thing to do.
Okay. Well, sticking with Roth conversions, because this is another question, I'm going to paraphrase it, but does the software assume that taxes will be paid out of a taxable account if the money's there? And can a user decide, is there an option where the user can decide which account type the taxes are paid from?
Well, the user can make additional IRA withdrawals to help pay for the conversions. So that would be, but it's always coming out of, the taxes are always coming out of regular assets. So if you produce more regular assets by specifying special withdrawals from rather than smooth withdrawals from your IRA account, you can do that. And we're very attentive to any user who's using our software can send kotlikoff@gmail.com suggestions. We have a long list. We're working down that list every day. We have top engineers. That's why, and something like military pensions, for example, we have all these active military. They have to decide. I've been in for 15 years. Should I stay to 20 years? If I stay to 20 years, I can, as soon as I retire, I can start getting my pension. Maybe that would be age 44. Whereas if I leave now, I have to wait till age 60 to collect. If I need to leave now for this other job, well, that's a profile to profile, head to head comparison of which one's going to produce higher lifetime discretionary spending. And that's something you could actually do right now, but we're going to make that much easier for the military. That's what on our to-do list.
Okay.
And we have lots of cool things coming. This is just the beginning. I've just got started. It's only 32 years, and I'm just getting going.
Good. All right. Here's another one for an age gap couple. So couple, I guess their ages are there's a big gap in ages. What criteria should surviving spouse consider when choosing the timing of taking her own benefits versus survivor benefits?
Well, the program will do the consideration for you. You will specify your age and your spouse's age and their maximum age of life and yours. There's defaults, but you can change those. And then the program will figure out what's optimal. I mean, when should you take your retirement benefit, given that you might, with a 100% probability, you're going to be taking a survivor benefit. If your future deceased spouse has a higher check than you're going to be receiving, you'll be getting their check. So the program will understand that and say, hey, it makes sense to take your own retirement benefit earlier because you will, in a few years, be collecting the survivor check. Another example would be you're already a widow, you're 60, you're a widow. Should you take your benefit, your widow's benefit right now, and then wait till 67, let's say, to take your retirement benefit? Or should you take your retirement benefit at 62 and wait to take your widow's benefit? Only our software can figure that one out, to tell you the truth, correctly. I mean, there might be other programs that can get that right. I don't want to say only, but that's a very complicated calculation. And you have to, and here's why it's particularly complicated, which is if your husband, let's say who died, took his Social Security benefit early, before his full retirement age, now we have a different widow's benefit formula in Social Security. Social Security actually has 6 different widow's benefit formulas.
Okay.
People know about one of them. Social Security tells you on its website about one of them, and it's misleading because there's actually 6. So I could take my retirement benefit at 62, and then if I look on the Social Security website, it says I should wait till full retirement age to maximize my Social Security benefit. But if my dead spouse took their retirement benefit early, then it could be that my maximum benefit, because it's a different formula, happens when I'm 65. And I should take my retirement benefit from 62 to 65 and maybe 3 months, and then start on my widow's benefit, because otherwise I'm going to give up $50,000 in present value. That's the kind of thing that Precision helps you with, getting it, sweating those details. And I use our software for research. We've gotten funding from the Federal Reserve, from the Sloan Foundation, from the National Institute of Aging, which is part of NIH, and over the years, and had lots of top journal articles. And academics are sworn to truth. I mean, if you're a good academic, you cannot sleep at night if you know there's something wrong in your code, or if you haven't done a really thorough job getting every detail right, because then it's like garbage in, garbage out. So I'm a dedicated academic, and even I haven't, Rob, to tell you the truth, I've been working on this company for 32 years. I've never taken a penny in compensation, because to me, the compensation was being able to do the research and to help people. And also these lovely, fantastic engineers and other marketers and people in the company, customer support people, I wanted to pay them more because BU pays me a good salary. So other people help, Habitat for Humanity. My, if you like, charitable giving is in this form to help people. Yeah. So we do hope to sell the software, the company at some point, but then I would want to run it for any acquirer if we did sell the company, because we have so many cool things we want to do. I want this kind of planning to take over the entire industry, because I think it should, and I think it will. Because I think it can answer.
That's admirable.
Can do.
I'm just looking at the chat, maybe just real quick before we close
Sure.
with a couple questions. One person wanted to know is in a Roth conversion analysis, is there any shouldn't we hold some money potentially back in a tax deferred account, because when we age, at some point we're likely to spend a lot of money on medical expenses that will be tax deductible, assuming they're over 7.5%. I think it's 7.5% of AGI or whatever the number is.
Yes.
So is that something worth evaluating? Does your software consider that?
Our software considers that. You can put in special expenses starting at a certain age. There are medical expenses that are tax deductible. It considers qualified, QCDs, charitable
QCD.
distributions. So that could limit the advantage of Roth conversions, because you're not going to be hit with these RMDs, because you're making these charitable contributions that are now handling the RMDs.
So your software considers QCD. So would we have to go into the software and add that as an expense for the relevant years?
Well, when you put in your special expense, which is a charitable contribution, you would click off that as a QCD. Now, we just added that about 3 months ago or 2 months ago. So there's always something new that's coming in, because we're being told by people, hey, guess what? I work for an employer and you guys are taking RMDs out of my employer-based 401k. That's going to get fixed this week. So we want this thing to be perfect, and we're getting there. And we're not.
Where do you indicate in the software? Where would a user put the QCDs?
Right under special expenditures, you would say charitable contribute. There's a check box, a little box that you check off. It says QCDs, charitable.
Well, let me ask you then: where are the special expenditures found?
Under the menu on the left, there's a main menu where you put it like earnings. You may have dismissed that entry. So if you click on household, it will come up with an option to show the special expenditures.
Okay, I'll have to search for it because I don't see that.
Just click on household,
and then dismissed items, restore
special expenditures. You restore, it's right up there, and then you just put it in.
That looks like it's just for property. Well, I'll find it.
Yeah, it's a restore thing. You probably dismissed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I take it then you would do the same thing for medical expenses if you wanted to assume some larger medical expense at age whatever 93 to 95.
Yeah.
And then when you run the Roth conversion, it's going to factor in those items in analyzing how much you should convert.
Yes, it'll take into account the fact that you're you're taking the standard deduction, or you're itemizing, or you're it takes into account the
let me just show. I really want to find this because I actually am not seeing this. Hang on for a second, Larry. I'm gonna show you my screen.
You want to pull up your screen? Yeah,
I am.
We're doing real time.
So here I am. So
okay, so you have click on household. Go further up. You see household in bold. Click on that. Go
special
over here.
There we go.
That's special receipts, but you wanted to click on. Go back to household.
See, I got ahead of you. I'm sorry.
Okay, special expenses.
Gotcha.
Now you say you would put in
Sure, right here. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. That's nifty because I don't think a lot of programs. One of the big questions I get a lot is factoring in QCDs in the Roth conversion analysis. And I don't think a lot of programs do that.
Right.
And when you're putting those expenses in, everything's in today's dollars.
Exactly. Right. Right.
And I don't remember, our QCDs I think the limit now is adjusted for inflation. Isn't that a recent change? Or am I making that up?
Yeah. Yes, no, it isn't. I think it isn't adjusted. Are we talking about the limit on the QCDs?
Yeah. Yeah, it is adjusted in 2025. Well, according to AI, I don't know. Should we believe AI? According to AI, for 2025, it's 108,000.
Yeah, we have that in our code because we looked at adjusted for the beautiful bill. Took us about 8 days. We have that in. But by the way, where you specify QCDs is under special withdrawals in your retirement account. So I'm taking out money from my retirement account. So that's where the checkbox is. And yeah, so if you want to, click on your retirement account, you would see.
Okay. Got it. Let me just show everyone that real quick. Bear with me. We'll go here. I got to push a bunch of buttons for this to happen. So in this, there's special withdrawal right here.
Yeah, click that. You see where it says qualified charitable distribution right there.
Got it. Perfect.
And that will affect your whole RMD, your whole Roth conversion strategy.
Well, you've now just given me something to do this afternoon.
Good. Yeah.
Well, Larry, I thank you for your time. In some ways, I feel like we've only scratched the surface of the program, but it's been very helpful to me. Hopefully, it's helped other folks.
I think it's.
Are there people watching? I don't even know. Did I click the right buttons? It could have just been you and I talking the last hour. No one else is watching. I think they're still out there.
Yeah, I think we did a good job. But I would just issue one warning, which is that this software can be addictive, because once you get into it, financial planning becomes fun. Well, gee, I saved some money this way. Maybe I can save some money that way. Maybe I should downsize my home. Let's think about downsizing my home in Tennessee from Connecticut. I'll get a bigger house for a third of the price, no state income taxes. Is it worth it? Well, here's how much money I'm going to save. Gee, I can buy tickets for my friends to come visit me, or I can go visit them. Those kinds of questions. Can I take this job in Seattle? There's no state income tax in Seattle, but the 401k sucks. And the housing is more expensive. How does that compare with a, Kansas City job in Missouri, where there is a state income tax, but housing is a lot less expensive and got a better 401k job, but that one's got a better salary. All this stuff you can incorporate one profile, the other profile. Half a second later, you see the difference.
Yep,
that's wonderful. Magic. That's economics magic.
Very good. Well, again, thank you. I'll go in and leave links to Maxifi. Oh, I did have one other. I know I keep doing this.
Go ahead.
You have the maximizemysocialsecurity.com. That's your website for just a social security tool.
Right.
But am I correct that if someone's using Maxifi, they don't need that tool because it's sort of built into Maxifi?
It's exactly the same code base for Social Security.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Wonderful. Well, Larry, thank you. And for those watching, thank you. I appreciate it. As I mentioned to Larry before we went live, I do plan to do a more detailed review of Maxifi. I did one a couple of years ago, but a lot has changed, and I think I know more about the program now. Still have a lot to learn. So I am going to do another one, in the next probably month or so.
Okay.
But thanks to everyone that watched, and Larry, thank you so much for your time. I end every show the same way, and that's just to tell everyone, remember, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom. Appreciate everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you, Larry.